We're always saying that we're trying to change this country, but we don't understand the depth of the violence. This country started on violence, and it's continued forever. And we've massacred millions of people. That's who we are. That's what this country is. And anybody that doesn't like us, like Saddam Hussein, is going down. And we will hang you. So when we look at the police department, and we look at the military, and we look at the government, it's all connected. And that's what people don't understand. We are a vicious race. That's what people have to get in touch with. And when we start understanding the depths of it, then we can start changing. I mean, I've been fighting and worrying about this for 72 years, and I haven't gotten the answer. There's no answer to this. And that's the other part of the American psychic. It wants formula. Tell me how to do it, and tell me what the results are, and we can do it. We can A plus B equals C. Yes! We're finished. Doesn't work that way in life. None of it makes any sense. So we need to say, look, we know that the police departments are totally out of control, but we also need to know that our politicians are totally out of control. Look who we're going to have to vote for in 2016. Hillary and Bush? I'm leaving the country. If that happens, I'm out of here. I got my passport. Patty's getting hers. We're thinking, if that happens, we're out of here.
If you could go anywhere, where would you go?
Maybe Ireland, because I can probably get citizenship in Ireland because I'm first generation. And there's some fluke in their law that allows the first generation to come back. And I don't want to die here. I do not want to die in this country. I am so ashamed of this country. I do not want to die here.
Now, you're a veteran?
I'm a veteran. I spent 9 years in the Navy, fighting a war from 62 to 71. And finally, in 70, we started to realize this thing is corrupt. And by 71, I was protesting outside the base I was stationed at. So we had active military that were actually protesting outside the bases. So that's what people really need to understand. We have 350 million people in this country, and maybe 300 million of them are really good people. But there is a huge part of this country that's in control, and I'm talking the politicians, the media, the corporations. It's really bad. And it used to be under fascism like Mussolini. You get rid of Mussolini, you go back to democracy. That's what happened. People tore him down and tore him apart. And they went back to democracy. What we have is we have the corporations running everything. We take out a Mussolini, another CEO pops up. Take him out, another one pops up. So it's the worst kind of oppression that's ever been experienced, because it's not fascism, it's corporatism, and it's worse, way worse. And if you get in the way of somebody, expect to get your ass kicked.
We see how the media also tries to ferment things into a conflict, but yet we want to see the end of this police brutality. What do you recommend people do to avoid being played for a fool in all this, to keep the movement for social justice moving forward and not co-opted as they would like to have it?
You need to have multi-level protests, for instance. This meeting that's taking place right now between the cops and the protesters in Portland is a good thing. Would anything come out of this? I don't know. But it's one step. The other step is us being out here. Alright, so people walking by, see my shirt, see us standing here, wondering what we're doing, and if they ask us, we'll tell them. That's the second part. The third part is the protest has to continue. And there's got to be confrontation, nonviolent confrontation. And that's what we've forgotten. In the 60s and 70s, we knew what nonviolent confrontation is. And what it is you force the authority to act in a way that people will boo them.
And there's many ways to do that.
Yes.
And we should keep exploring what those methods might be.
If you go up to a police officer and get in their face, they're going to react. You know that. So you do it. And they react, and
whenever
you get it on video.
Whenever I see Homeland Security, I try to drop a little bit of truth, and they just roll up the window.
Yeah. I mean, they do really strange things. Either they run away, or they arrest you, and you get it on video, and eventually the rest of the people look at it and say, you know what that person was saying yesterday I thought was a little bit crazy. But now it's beginning to make sense to me because what he's saying is happening in front of me. And I can no longer just disregard it. So you have this conversation going on throughout the United States right now in every major city. Every major city is saying there's something wrong with our police department and we need to fix it.
And local corruption, and you're on a regular basis down at city council, either outside or inside. Sometimes they boot you out and you're outside. What are some of the core issues that you want to share right now in terms of Portland's corruption and issues you've been raising for a couple of years at least?
Well, the biggest problem we have right now is our mayor is a liar. I mean, you can't trust anything he says. He speaks like a liberal and he acts like a conservative. And that's what he does. He steals things from the homeless. He has his cops go down and do these sweeps. And what the sweeps are is they knock out the camps. And they take all their property and they put it in a place where the people can't get to and they can't identify it, so they lose it. So it's theft. And everybody knows it. So we're one of the few people that say, Mayor, you're a thief. You're a thief in the night. You hurt the most vulnerable among us.
Their PR machine has put out the false notion that they're building tiny homes for the homeless. Maybe a small
the micro houses that have been introduced by Mike. What's Mike's last name?
Whitney. Michael Whitney.
Michael Whitney. If you ask Mike how he's doing with the mayor, he'll throw up. Because, and we suggested that he be very careful. You do not trust politicians. You applaud them when they do something good. Do something. Not talk about it. Do something. Amanda Fritz did something good with the sick leave throughout the city. It's a good thing. She did it. She didn't have to talk about it. She just did it. So when these politicians talk about stuff like Charlie Hales does, don't believe a word he says. Watch what he does. So if he talks about these micro houses, which it's a great idea, but it's only one piece of the problem here. And Michael's idea is to have low-income people use these micro houses. But you have to have income because his concept is to take the money for the rents and build more. Charlie Hales' idea is to move the people off the streets into these houses, which is a sure way of killing it because there's no funding. There's no continuation of funding and you're totally dependent on the government. And when you do that, you're asking for trouble. If you take the... Boy, there's a saying that someone just sent me. If you take the king's crown, you do the king's bidding. So if you take their money, you hear me, ministers? If you take their money, understand you do their bidding. Because you can't stand there and say, Charlie Hales, you're a lying son of a bitch if you got a $50,000 grant. I can do it because I don't have a grant. So, but I'll tell you some interesting news. They excluded me for 30 days out of City Hall. All right? So I appealed it. So I went to the hearing officer, and we had 3 meetings. Usually there's only one. We had 3. On the 3rd one, they said, you know what? You ran out of time, Joe. It's now moot. And they went into the laws and found a case called the Yancey case, which was a Supreme Court, state Supreme Court case that said, if you run out of time, that's it, too bad. Well, the hearing officer said, gee, I really feel bad about this, Joe, but it's moot. All right, the whole thing is moot. Well, a friend of mine who's a really great lawyer by the name of Dan Meek, he said, Joe, the legislator in 2007 changed the law. So it took me a while, but I found the law. Sure enough, they passed a law because of the case called Yancey and said, no, once you start the process, you got to finish it. All right. And so now, the hearing officer, in his decision, when he said everything is moot, in the back of it says, we will not review our own cases. We're not allowed to do that. So what I did was I took the law and copied it and sent it to the city attorney and sent it to the auditor who the hearing officer works for and said, you're in violation of the law. So
what was it that you did that upset them, that caused them to do the 30 days?
Well, one thing, I threw the Constitution at the mayor, just a booklet, a little booklet, kind of tossed that.
The nincompoop.
Yeah, and I asked him to read it, and he didn't, of course.
You threw it from where you were sitting up?
Yeah, I was at the table presenting, and we got into this argument about it, the hemp festival, which I don't even smoke grass, so I mean, this was a non-issue for me. But I got really angry because they denied their permit. So here's the deal. The Constitution says you don't need a permit. You can gather, you can have assemblies, and you can gather. But the Supreme Court of the United States said, well, you know, the city can make some restrictions on it, so yeah, they can have permits. So you go to the city and you get a permit. And what that permit gives you is the right to hold your event. But they denied it. So first they say, in the Constitution you have a right to assemble and you have a right to your festival, but we would like you to do the permit so you can put some money down for the cleanup and all that stuff. They turned around and they denied the permit. I was furious.
That's kind of strange for them to do that in Portland.
That's right. And the one that was leading the charge was Amanda Fritz, who was my favorite of the five. So I got so angry that I had a Constitution when I was speaking, and I picked it up and I looked at Charlie, and Salzman and Fish were absent. So I threw it in their direction, so I didn't want to hit him. So I threw it in their direction, but it curved to a shot. And I went, oops.
It gained a life of its own, you know?
Yeah.
Knew where it needed to go.
So is your 30
yeah.
Is it up now? Can you go back?
Oh yeah, I'm
and
back.
What are some of the main issues that you're going to be presenting from here on out, or discussing?
The whole homeless question is that they spend millions of dollars and they do it wrong because they don't ask the right people. I always say to people, if you want to know about a fire, who would you ask? Firemen? That would be a good person to ask. Tell me about a fire. If you want to know about homeless, who would you ask? Somebody that's homeless. What do you need? What's going on? Because it's a multiple problem. It's very complicated. We have people that are on drugs. We have people that have mental issues. We have people that just don't want to go inside, which really surprised me. We have people that just want to be outdoors. We have people that are just lost, especially the young people. They don't know where to go. They've been thrown out of their house for whatever reason. So it's a multiple problem that you can't solve with microhouses. You can't solve with building buildings. It's a whole combination of things, and that's what they don't understand. And they set up these committees, and who do they put on the committee? The very people that get grants. So you have Join on the committee, and you have the organization that runs a lot of the stuff.
TPI in Central City.
Yeah, Central City. You have those people on the committees. Well, that's insanity. It's not working, and they keep doing the same thing.
So instead of creating jobs for the homeless suffering, they create a bigger bureaucracy involving those institutions, groups, and others.
That's right. And, you know, if you ask the homeless, what's the biggest problem that you have right now? You know, a lot of them will tell you, my stuff. I have no place for my stuff. I got to carry it everywhere I go. So I put it in something that I can wheel. If we create storage downtown someplace, a very localized storage pod, we can do those pods that they do with moving. You can put your stuff in them. That kind of concept. If we could get those people that they can put their stuff in a safe place, we could even hire somebody off the street to watch their stuff and actually pay them. So we create jobs. That's the kind of stuff that you need to do. And it's very simple and it's very inexpensive.
At the very least, create a system where people have something to do.
Right.
Other than numb themselves.
Once they have their belongings taken care of, then you can work on, okay, what does this person need? He may need rehabilitation. He may need therapy. He may need just a place indoors. There are cities now just saying, to hell with this. Let's put everybody indoors and then work on the problem indoors. And it's working. Salt Lake City killed 80% of their homeless. Just wiped them all out. Put them indoors. And they figured out that it cost them $16,000 a year for them to be on the street. $14,000 and put them in a house. Duh! $2,000 a pop they're saving. So if you got 1,000 people, you're talking $200,000 savings immediately. Just put them in. We have open housing all over the place in this city. We have buildings that are abandoned, houses that are abandoned. We have enough indoors that we could get everybody off the streets. And then say, okay, what's the problem? You know, what do you need? You want education? Do you want just to belong? You know, what's going on? Those are the kind of things that they could be doing. They're not. And you have to ask yourself, well, why not? Because you can't put your name on a little pod that you're putting stuff in. You know, so the Bud Clark building, that's what's important. The big name, all right? I got my name on the building, and that's what Fish wants, and that's what Hales wants, and they just want their name on the building someplace. So maybe we should do that. You know, and all these little micro houses that we're going to create, why don't we put their names on those? You know?
This is going to be a big year ahead for new people, in addition to arrive in Portland, that are going to be filling these micro apartments, not to be confused with the tiny homes, micro homes that we're discussing potentially for the homeless, but these micro apartments, these big, ugly, giant yellow buildings that are coming invading North Portland. By spring to summer, a lot of those buildings will be done and ready for new Portland residents.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting year ahead. We're going to see the population grow real quickly.
They're creating a city of yuppies. That's what we are. We're just...
And evacuees from other cities, which says more about how America's kind of gone the toilet, that everybody thinks this is number one.
Yeah.
That's what, I mean, if this is number one,
scary.
oh my God.
How bad it is everywhere else.
That's a little scary.
Yeah. Well, thanks for any other things you want to add to this. A lot of very important issues for people to contemplate when they're being given this false image of Portland being super progressive, super green friendly. There's this other side that people should always consider, and that's the greater reality of what's real.
Can you imagine if each morning that you and I get up and everybody else got up, we said, okay, we're going to do one good thing today with somebody else. You know, if you're sitting on a bus and someone doesn't have enough change, you go up and you say, hey, you know, let me help you out here. You get a little more sensitive about getting up and giving somebody a seat. If we did one thing, just one, we could change this whole environment. So that's important. So if I have a message to anybody, that would be it. You know, if you get overwhelmed by all the stuff that's going on, I can surely understand that. Just do one thing. One kindness. You know, help somebody across the street, give up your seat, you know. We started this thing called suspended coffee. It comes out of Europe. It's not originating here. And what you do is you go in and you say Starbucks. You go in and you buy coffee at Starbucks. You say to the cashier, the next homeless person that comes in, I want you to buy him a coffee. Here's the money. And you'd be surprised what happens on that. The people that run the place, maybe not Starbucks so much, people that run the coffee house, they look at you and they say, wow, that's kind of an interesting idea. So what you're doing is it's like going through two tunnel, you know, booths, pay booths, where you pay for the person to back it. It freaks them out. You know, when they get up there and all of a sudden it's free. So you can do stuff like that. You can say to the bus driver, I'm going to pay for 2 fares, and the next person that gets on has no money, let them on. And the bus drivers look at you and say, yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing. So you do those kinds of things. Or go around, like I carry hand warmers with me everywhere I go. And they're not for me. It's just if I'm sitting on a train or a bus and then someone comes on with a big bundle and, you know, it's obvious that they may be on the street, I get one of the hand warmers and I say, hey, hand warmer, interested? Some of them will say yes, some of them will say no. Most of them say yes, because hand warmers are really cool. And they last for 8 hours, so that's kind of cool. So you can do that. You can carry 2 or 3 of them around. Pick them up at Fred Meyer's for $1 a piece. You know, carry 2 or 3 around, and you see somebody on the street that looks cold, ask them if they need one. So, you know, you need to actively try to do something that's good at least once a day. And you'd be surprised. But just sleep at night. You know, I mean, there's a lot of crap that's going on in your head about the wars, about what's going on with the homeless, what's going on with our government, what's going on with our police department. It'll keep you up at night. But I'm telling you, if you do something really nice that day, you're going to sleep.
That's great advice.